Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of my podcast mini-series, Secrets I'll Never Tell, with me, Benedict Cork. I'm a little bit obsessed with podcasts, even more so over the past year. I love unfiltered conversation, and I could think of no better way to spend my time than chatting with some people that I really respect and admire. So thank you for taking a chance on this with me. My new EP is also called Secrets I'll Never Tell, and it's all about vulnerability. So in this podcast, I want to chat with other creatives about stories in their lives. My first guest is the incredible Adam Lambert, who shot to fame on American Idol in 2009 with his insane vocals. He's since sold millions of albums. He became the first openly gay artist to top the US album charts. The legend Nile Rodgers said working with Adam was one of the most organically perfect jams he'd had since working with Bowie. And he's been touring around the world with Queen since 2011 as well. We spoke a lot about sexuality in the music industry, how he's kept his mental health in check during the pandemic and beyond, and loads of other things. So I really hope you enjoy this first conversation. This is Secrets I'll Never Tell with Adam Lambert.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks so much
good.
for doing this with me. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Thank you for your time.
Of course.
How are you? How's life? How's the pandemic been for you?
You know, it's a little slow. But it's crazy because in some ways I've definitely been grateful for the downtime. You know, I'm usually pretty busy and running around, and I feel like, besides getting restless and a little bit punchy, I do think that the my creativity seems to be in a good space because there's not as much distraction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I have the space and time to kind of be organic about it.
That's awesome. I feel like a lot of people have said that they wouldn't have given themselves this amount of time to kind of just be and just kind of take it day by day, because you can't really plan for the future. But in a way, I mean, the first couple of months were obviously just really scary and sad, but actually now it's got to the point where some days, like today, I just woke up and it was really beautiful weather, and I just thought, well, look, when else am I going to be given an entire day of just nothing to kind of fill it with really fun things like doing this and writing songs and being creative without the pressure of anything, and even deadlines, and it's a really, I don't know, there's a lot of lessons I think we'll all learn after this whole period.
Exactly. And I creatively, I've been doing it's like an obstacle course in my house. I'll sit at the computer and work on music, which is something that's the thing I'm most proud of right now, is that I once the pandemic hit and we all found out that everything was stopped and shut down and canceled, I said, okay, what's a new skill I can learn? And I learned how to use Logic, which is a music software program to create songs and record. I got some nice equipment I got a nice microphone, and I continue to learn how to use it properly with all the plugins and the different ways of editing. And I've been recording a lot of my own vocal ideas, which is
amazing,
a game changer for me. So I'll go from doing that, and then I'll go, if I'm fried and I've spent too many hours working on the computer, I'll go downstairs and I'll start crafting.
No, what kind of crafting?
Oh my gosh, I've been creating accessories for myself.
Amazing.
It's literally it's silly. I mean, I'm Mr. Glue Gun at this point.
But I think that's exactly what we need, especially when breaking out from stuff. Like if I'm doing a Zoom session or something, I love it, but it's quite intense, staring at a computer screen for a few hours. I need to get back into my body or do something. Even if I just go and water all the plants or do something cool, it just switches me out of that zone. And especially because we're still in lockdown here, especially not really being able to leave the house much, just walking around or doing something with my hands is a really good way of kind of exercising my brain at the same time. I really like it. I really want to see these is it necklaces or rings or what kind of stuff?
It's I created a pair of boots. Wow. I had a pair of boots laying around that were those glittery kind of giant platform boots, very Club Kid.
Amazing.
From years ago. I wore them to Burning Man probably 14 years ago. And I got booked on a show. I probably can't say yet, but I was a guest on a show that is very over the top and festive with how they want people to dress. So I
Ooh.
went for this, and it's like a theme and all this stuff. So I had to like put the theme onto the boots.
Oh my god, amazing!
Yeah,
Did you rock up and there? Everyone thought like you know you got some stylist and designer to work, and then we were like, no, did it myself.
yeah,
Me.
yeah. I was like, oh no, I made these. They were like, what? I even made it, and I made a waist cincher to kind of coordinate with it, like and it's easy because you can get all that stuff like on Amazon, like real basic stuff, and then if you find the right like the right things to add to it, you can get creative, and it just looks rich, you know. But it was so cheap and so easy.
But then it's also one of a kind, and it's your own thing. Like no one else is going to own those boots.
Absolutely.
Like, while everyone else has been making banana bread, you've been like making your own fashion line.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God for Amazon, because like, you know,
oh God, yeah.
I mean, we here in LA, we can actually leave our houses at this point, and by the way, I feel terrible for you guys. I mean, I don't think we actually ever did that order. There was never like a don't leave your house thing.
Do you know what? It's very like swings and roundabouts. Like I was chatting to my friend who's now moved to Paris from London just a few months ago. And back in December, they were loving life, doing everything. She just moved to the city, having a great time. And we were going back into lockdown. But now we're slowly kind of coming out of it. And they've literally gone back into lockdown like this week. So it's really kind of like grass is always greener. Like I'm obviously super grateful that we're now able to like meet the odd friend, and you're able to like do a few bits and bobs, and hopefully next month more will reopen and stuff. But like, you know, who knows what it's going to be like in a few months' time. So that's sort of that's why I like living just day to day at the moment, like just planning not for the future, because you can't really expect anything, which is and it's kind of freaky and terrifying, but you're right, there is something kind of beautiful about it. It allows and forces us to kind of stay more present, which is something that, like, you know, you talk to any like spiritual or psychologist, you know, any sort of advisor, life coach, whatever, and they say that that's sort of the key to, like, you know, living a peaceful life. You know, dwelling too far in the past will depress you. Yeah. And dwelling too far in the future will make you really anxious, they say. And I fully think that's 100% true. I've noticed that over the last couple of years. I remember, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, us having a chat, and you were saying, like, I think you had the next 18 months completely planned out, and it was so exciting. It was all this really, really cool stuff. But having a full 18 months planned out is really kind of it must be an odd sensation, because you're like, where's the spontaneity? Where's like do you know what, I just want to take a quick like weekend trip here or whatever, you know? And it must have been tough at the beginning of the pandemic when just everything got cancelled. But at the same time, was it also like, oh my God, I suddenly have all this time to do all the stuff I've been putting off for years?
Yes and no. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a mixed emotion there. I mean, I think at first I was sort of like shocked and then sort of like sad about it, you know, because it was like so much planning, so much work had gone into, I mean, for those that don't know, I put out an album about a week before everything got canceled. So
yeah,
I was like, oh,
which, by the way, is a brilliant album.
Thank
it's
you.
Such a shame that it came out literally at that moment. Everyone was like, oh, the world's end.
I think it might have gotten, it might have been playing second fiddle to that. I think people might have slept on it because, you know, the world was sick. So, you know, and I hope that maybe that people will check it out in the future, and we'll all look fondly on it as this little gem. That's the way I look at it. I'm really proud of it, but
it's a beautiful album. And also, I don't think it's like that at all. I think so many people appreciated it, and also, like, it seemed like the critical reaction was just insane. Like, everyone was like, "This is your best body of work yet."
I was really flattered by that. Yeah, that was nice. I mean, and I think, you know, the way I took a lot more of the workload on myself. Like, I did a lot more. I co-wrote everything. I like sort of executive produced it. I was really more in charge of everything creative around the album than I've ever been. You know, I've always had a hand in it, but I got really involved this time. So it was really fun. I had a good time with it, and I feel like there's like a personal satisfaction with it, even if it, you know, got cut short, the life of it, and I didn't get to go tour, and I didn't really get to promote the album. So, you know, I was a bit robbed that way, but like, look, people's health is a lot more important than a pop album. So, you know, I get it.
True, but I think you are allowed to feel frustrated about those kind of things, because I think we've all had different experiences, and everyone you talk to has a different experience of the pandemic. And while obviously the whole situation is, really sad and really scary at times as well, like it affects everyone so differently. Like whether you're having to homeschool your kids, or whether your business is suffering, or whether you're having to cancel hundreds of shows and stuff. Like it's everyone has their own experience of it, and I don't know. I think it's kind of healthier if we were just like, no, it sucks every now and then. I think it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, and the other thing about it too is that the once that sort of depression, so to speak, of everything being canceled kind of wore away, it did leave room for the next thing, and I've been working and working and working, and yeah, I wouldn't have ever had that time to focus with that little distraction. So the silver lining is that I've been so creative since, and the output's been really good. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to come on to that actually, because I think it was with the first song of Velvet, but in February 2019, you uploaded a really beautiful post on social media talking about your mental health. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just read a little bit of it.
Sure.
You said, I'm coming out of a dark period of second guessing my own artistry and having my mental health suffer because of it. I started asking myself, is all this hustle really worth it? I put all my focus on my work and started to feel detached in my personal life. My self-worth was suffering, and I was feeling lonely and becoming depressed. I thought that was so beautiful when I read it, and so vulnerable, because so many of us feel like that. I was just wondering, how important do you think it is for people to be vulnerable, artists to be vulnerable, whether it's on stage or social media, or even just in day-to-day life with friends and family?
I mean, I think it's vital. I mean, and that was the post kind of around the song that we released together, or that we wrote together, that I released. Yeah, I feel something.
Yeah.
Which, and when we were writing it, we were talking about a lot of that stuff. We were, like reflecting on the experience of being in this business, being an artist, and look, this is the thing, like the art part of it is the beauty of it, in my opinion. Getting to create and perform and connect with fans, like all of that's very pure. But the whole business side of it, which is a necessary evil, can be grueling. It can be a little soulless, and it can be very cutthroat. And, it's for those of us, and there are many of us that are sensitive, it affects you, and I think, in today's day and age, there's so much of a sense of identity being like the main focus of a lot of what artists are creating and a lot of what people are talking about. And when your identity is so wrapped up in your career, if you're not getting either the validation or the success that you want, it starts to affect you on a personal level. It's really hard not to put the two together. You know what I mean? It's really hard to compartmentalize that. So I think that's what I was kind of dealing with, is that, I'm not like allowing myself to be objective, because I'm taking this personally, all of it.
Wow.
If the career isn't going swimmingly, all of a sudden I feel like, well, there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? It affects myself.
Right, because you put so much of your own identity in, obviously, your music, but also just the way you express yourself and being on stage and stuff. When suddenly if so much of your identity is in that, when not everything's ticking over nicely, that can feel like a personal sort of failure or
a struggle. Like, oh God, this is like my constant struggle. It's not working. And like, what do you do? So I mean, it's a lesson, and also being a little more realistic with yourself and being a little kinder to yourself. Like, look, if what the conclusion that I came to after talking to some friends and doing some reading and reflecting was like, all you can do is do your best. That's it. That's all you can do, and as long as what you're doing is coming from an authentic place, that's the other part that you can do. And I think in the past, I would question some of my authenticity looking back, because I was so obsessed with doing what I thought others would like, and I think the big realization there was, what I need to like it genuinely 100% and feel connected to whatever I'm doing, or else it's wrong.
I love that. I actually was listening to a podcast just before this chat, and someone was saying like when you make something, whatever project it is artistically, when you put it out into the world, it is 100% successful in your own eyes until other people start like chipping away at it and telling you what they think of it and stuff. And I love that idea of it because I'm so used to going, oh God, I'm going to put this song out, but I hope people like it. And I really hope people respond to it and, you know, wait for people to kind of send messages and see what the reaction is going to be. When actually I have to go back to the moment of writing the song or whatever piece of art it's going to be and think, I felt like in that moment that this was important enough to put out. So if I think it's important enough, I'm just going to let it go. I really want to learn that skill because it's something I really, really battle with.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, and you know, I've become more aware of it, but by no means have I figured it all out. I mean, I'm kind of still, you know, I still have my moments, but it's the first step is kind of recognizing it, you know, and being aware of it. And I think, I don't know, I feel like it's tricky because so much of what we do is for an audience. So it's like you can't ignore whether or not people are going to like it, and you can't ignore the business of it. You know, I mean, the business is vital. You know, it's cool. Like, how else are you going to share it and get it out there? And you know, success is a funny thing. It's very subjective, and there's different definitions of it, and success means different things to different people. And you know, so much of our business is measured by how successful something is, whether or not it's actually good. You know, we've seen it. We've 100%. Seen like the random songs or artists that maybe not, they might not be considered the most talented in the world, but they're huge. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, it's like the reason why they are where they are at is because they've sold or streamed this many times, regardless of the quality of what they're doing. And I, you know, I think that's fine. It doesn't affect me, but I for me personally, the playing the game thing needs to come second to, is this a good piece of music or art or performance?
Yeah, exactly. And when the playing the game comes in front of that, I think that's when it can get really tricky. When it's in a perfect balance, because obviously there's going to be people you're working with where it's their job to make it, you know, make money or make it a success or get it into the right ears and stuff like that. And of course, you want to have that balance of, if you make something, you want people to hear it and you want people to love it, of course. But when that becomes the first and foremost thing, then I think that's when it becomes really tricky.
It's like when that's determining what you're making and how you're making it, that's the problem. And that's where I think that comes with age, and it just comes with sort of, you know, I've definitely been playing the game and strategizing and all that, and you know, I feel like my biggest personal successes have come when I haven't done that, and I've been the most satisfied with the things that I've created when I haven't been thinking about that. So it's something that I'm starting to lean into more and more.
That's amazing. So I was doing loads of research about you this afternoon because I'm a very serious podcaster now, you see. And I was watching like old interviews and clips. And I didn't realize that you were the first openly gay artist to top the US album charts, which is incredible, but also quite sad at the same time. And that it took that long.
It took a really long time, yeah.
And like, I'm really interested to know, like, do you think the situation for queer musicians is getting better in 2021?
I mean, obviously, since it's been like a decade since I've been out on the scene, and it's changed so much. It is so different than when I started. When I got off of American Idol and was putting together my first album and doing all that press and stuff, that's when we dove into my sexuality as like a topic. You know, a lot of people were like, oh, well, were you out when you were an Idol? I'm like, well, I wasn't in. I mean, I've been out since I was like 18, and you know me, I'm pretty out and forward about things. So I wasn't keeping any secrets. But you know, it wasn't like Ryan Seacrest did not ask me about my sexuality on air. So, you know, that would have been awkward as hell.
Right.
So, you know, it just wasn't a thing. And nowadays, I think our identities and our labels have become more important. It's almost expected now, you know, in entertainment, whether you're claiming to be something or that's your subject matter that you're creating around. I just think it was a different time. And so right after Idol, I started doing press and doing lots of interviews, and that was like being thrown to the wolves as well, because it was crazy. I mean, the media is tricky. It is real tricky. There's many members of the media that I've had an amazing connection with. Like, I've had incredible interviews. I've had a lot of rapport. But in the beginning there was definitely some stumbling blocks that I experienced.
Wow, is that like people really trying to get to know your personal life and trying to dig into the past?
The big thing that I remember was that I think it was Out magazine, and they were like saying like, well, you just came out and it's like, you need to do this right, and now you're the one, like, kind of projecting an agenda onto me in a way that just, I felt like, oh wow, whoa, hey,
like you're the poster boy and you have to lead,
like,
the
exactly, like I auditioned for this show, and I'm a singer, not to be the gay poster child, but to be an artist, and with the media, the media, that's their kind of their thing. There's a lot of music lovers and music critics and stuff, but you can't really write what music sounds like. I mean, you can try for a minute, you can describe it, but that's not what makes a good article. You know what I mean? It's all the other stuff. So
that's so interesting. I've not thought of it like that. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
most of the PR that we all do, it's like we talk about the music a little bit, but that's not really the main thing that they're writing about. They're writing about
it's always like an angle,
like who is this person?
Who you working with?
Who is what's their real personality, or what do they think, or what are their opinions, or their life, and so I think the beginning I was sort of like shell shocked by it, like opening myself up and sharing my life with a wider public. That's not something that I really understood. And this is before Instagram and before Twitter, and we had Facebook, we had MySpace before that. So it was like a whole new thing for me. And I'm a pretty open person, but I found that like it freaked me out. It stressed me out, because I was just like, oh, there's no private now. I don't have privacy the way I once did. And it's like something you don't think about until it's compromised,
And it's almost traded like as a commodity on social media now. And in one way it's brilliant, because being vulnerable and open about yourself is really celebrated online, and that's such an awesome thing. But there's such a blurred line between doing that, but then also not having a private life, or not being allowed to have a private life. So I'm just interested to know how that's, because you've obviously over the last 10 years sort of seen the advent of social media and how that's affected the music industry, but also just your own like personal life. How I'm sure now it must feel like you have to share so much more of yourself than you would have 10 years ago.
Yes and no, because now everyone's doing it. So now, because everyone's sort of living their lives online, it's not as invasive, because it's sort of the standard. You know what I mean? Even people that aren't well known, or creators, they're everyone is famous, or everyone wants to be famous, so to speak. Everyone on not everyone, I'm making a blanket statement, but like a lot of regular old people are like, oh, I have this many views on my my picture now, or my YouTube post or whatever. And it's like that's relatively new, in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's like we're all kind of curating our own TV shows every day for ourselves, and presenting this idea of ourselves to our family and friends, or to our followers if you're trying to build a platform, wherever it is. And it's a really odd existence.
Now, and the blessing of that is that, in 10 years ago, being a gay artist, there were a lot of gatekeepers that you had to sort of either impress or please, or convince that what you were creating was worthy of their stamp of approval. And that's how it was with radio, that's how it was with the label system, because obviously it took a lot more money to get songs out and promoted. Now it's like, we have Spotify, we have Apple Music, we have streaming, we have all these DSPs, that's what they call them, that allow people to listen to as much music as they want at the touch of a button. You're not needing to play the radio game as hard as we all once did, or any of these other games. So without as many gatekeepers, or without the gatekeepers being as powerful as they once were, it's like a trade. It's like, yeah, you know, on one hand now, yeah, I can go directly to people as opposed to going through all those channels, but there's a lot of people doing it. So the market is completely saturated, and you know, it's hard to get people's attention.
Yeah, it's something crazy like 40,000 new songs are released a week, I think, onto Spotify. Like, it's nuts. Like, how you expect all those 40,000 people to be satisfied with the reaction, or at least the support from different channels and stuff, like, is
and
crazy.
It's like it even trickles down into TV, which is where I got my start on Idol. It was like my season, we were having during like the last few weeks, it was like 30 million people a night watching the show. It was crazy. The viewership was nuts. It was so many people. Now Idol and all the shows, the viewership is way lower consistently across the board, because, and in my opinion, is because of social media. It's because people have a lot more on-demand streaming options to entertain themselves in the palm of their hand on their phones. They're not going to tune into a show every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can watch the highlights on YouTube, like, you know, a day, like 2 seconds later after it's aired. You don't need to watch a whole 2 hours with, you know, adverts and segments and stuff. You can just go on social media and watch.
I mean, someone was talking about Drag Race the other day, and they were like, "Have you been watching?" I'm like, "Well, I guess kind of. I've been watching on Instagram. I've been seeing like clips, because they provide pretty long clips on Instagram, and that's enough for me. I'm good."
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but my attention span is so short these days. Like, honestly, after about 2 minutes, if I'm not into a movie or something, I can't commit to 2 hours of a movie if the first 2 minutes don't grab me. But then I feel so dirty and sad because of that, because I want to appreciate other people's work and stuff. But I think that there's just so much stuff flying around, whether it's songs, movies, books. Like, there's only so many hours in the day, and I want whatever I'm investing in to be something I'm really going to enjoy. So I'm so judgmental now, but I kind of hate it about myself.
Well, your taste is getting stronger and stronger. I mean, maybe it's I don't know. Like, I just feel like
maybe it's that.
I feel like
I'll call it,
you know, especially with all this time on our hands, you just get really in tune with like what you like and what you don't like. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't like that.
True. Yeah, true. But I feel like I'm a reality TV judge, and I'm literally going, nope, next, like, flicking through Netflix or whatever. One more question I had for you that I was just interested to know about was that obviously you've been touring around the world with Queen since, what is it, 2011, 2012, something like that, and a lot of performers talk about the eeriness of silence after walking off a huge stage like that, and how the contrast of like the massive amounts of noise to silence in a dressing room can be really, really tough on mental health. And I was just wondering how you keep a check on things and how you sort of stay positive in those.
Yeah, I mean,
really
it is a trip.
situations.
I mean, that's something. It's still like a big crash. You know, I actually think like right after show, the quiet of a dressing room is sort of welcome, because you kind of need a minute to sort of like breathe and sort of center yourself. For me, it's the moment of going home to, or you know, when you're on tour, it's like going back to the hotel. No one else around. There's no one there to like sort of decompress with. I mean, you know, when I've been single on tour, that's sort of how it's felt. And that's the hard part. It's sort of just being with yourself at that point, because it's like being unplugged, like suddenly, you know what I mean? Instead of powering down appropriately.
And that might only be like an hour or two after coming off stage in front of tens of thousands of people.
Like a high and a low.
It must be such a huge
with the Queen
contrast.
shows, it's so draining because it's so physical and kind of loud. That a lot of times I'm just exhausted and I want to go to bed. So, you know, that's part of it. But yeah, the up and down is hard. It is hard. And it's also like, you know, it's really clear that like when you're on stage, you're like, okay, this is me, but this is like me on stage. It's like, you know, heightened reality. It's all like done for the audience's, you know, benefit. But in real life, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? So I think there's definitely it can become addicting to constantly be on, because that's where you get the biggest applause when you're on stage. And one has to remember, okay, we're not on stage right now. It's not all about you. This is a shared experience, but it becomes, it's hard to kind of remind yourself of it. It's hard to stay in reality and stay grounded when you're in that cycle, and so when I'm on tour, that's kind of the thing. I'm like, okay, what can I do to ground myself right now? That's what I need to do. What can I do to like stay humble and to stay real and to stay like a normal person,
Well, look, I'm going to let you go because we've vastly overrun, but it's because of all these amazing topics that you've been willing to chat about. So, yeah, I'm super grateful. Can't wait to come live again soon. I can't wait to just come and see you and say hey.
All right.
Amazing.
Nice talking to you. Bye.
Thank you so much to Adam for that chat. I was really grateful that he was willing to be so candid and yet so eloquent about all these topics. So it was the perfect way to kick off this little mini-series. I've got loads more awesome people lined up to speak to over the next couple months. So thank you so much for listening and taking a chance on this. You'll be getting a new episode every week, and the EP's out in less than a month now. So if you fancy it, please go give the podcast a little review or a rating and subscribe to get each new episode into your inbox as it arrives. All right, thanks again, and I'll catch you same time next week. Bye.